The DSS is back in the news. Big government shows its hand. Pivot is a bad word. The US economy rebounds and fake news has no shame. Welcome back, folks, to episode 18 of Viewpoint, the Brian Heeraman podcast. It's always great to have everyone tuning in. Remember, this podcast is available on all major podcasting apps, including YouTube, Twitter, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and for my international friends, Spotify. So, another week, and boy, do we have things to talk about. But first, allow me to wish everyone happy Halloween. In Trinidad and Tobago, every day is Halloween, as you all know, because we have a bunch of tricksters running the show, and they tell us it's a treat. So, let's get into it now. So, the main issue I suppose everyone has been talking about, and I suspect will continue to talk about for some time, is this whole DSS issue. Yes, folks, the DSS is back in use. So, more than a month after $22 million was apparently seized from the DSS house in La Hocata, comes word that a second raid took place on this DSS in which boxes of receipts and a quantity of cash totaling $6.4 million, as confirmed by Acting Commissioner Police MacDonald Jacob. So, during the first raid, it was alleged that it was 22 million, it's 97 million. Obviously, no one knows the true figure because in Trinidad and Tobago law enforcement officers, they stuff a couple amount in their bulletproof vests for safekeeping, of course. Nothing else but safekeeping, because that's what police officers do. They keep cash safe. Now, folks, this is not the first raid on the DSS, and it's clearly linked to the September 22nd raid in which whatever amount of cash was seized, whether it be 22 million or 97 million, was seized, and that cash was released hours later in the dead of night, allegedly unknown to investigators and to the Commissioner of Police. But that can be debated. So, among local officers who are investigating this whole DSS is two Bajan police officers who arrived last week and were inducted as Special Reserve Police to assist in this whole DSS investigation. Now, these two officers are the first two humans to have COVID-19 immunity, since they have not gone through the entire quarantine period. One is left with this assumption. And one wonder who is also paying for these officers' trip. I mean, we didn't pay for election observers, so I'm pretty sure we didn't pay for these officers' trip. That's just, if you're following standards, that's just how it should be anyway. And these two officers, they pose no health risk to others as wrong them. I mean, unlike those nasty infectious beaches, restaurant, bars, and cinemas where you could get COVID-19 by just even going there for a second. But I digress. Let's stay focused. So, during the second raid, Karen Clark, who is a member of the Defense Force, and several of his attorneys was present during the second raid, as I mentioned. And obviously, there was a little gathering in terms of residents coming around, and they were dissatisfied with what was taking place, alluding to police provocation and harassment and all that stuff. But I'll get back to this whole issue of harassment because I think I dealt with harassment on my last podcast episode. The Prime Minister now, who is head of the National Security Council, publicly condemned the DSS as a cancer, which, if not dealt with, could eat away the soul of our nation. I don't know. I mean, when I hear Rowley using the word soul of a nation, and it's just funny to me. I mean, it's like a clown at a child's birthday party to me. But he also said that the DSS was a threat to national security. Now, we can debate what this true cancer is that is plaguing this nation is at another time. But what I don't understand is how the Prime Minister can make such damning allegations about someone and an organization, but yet no one is charged. I mean, I'm wondering whatever happened to innocent until proven guilty. The Prime Minister making statements such as these has implications in my mind on the lives of private citizens, whether it be Karen Clark or anybody else. And obviously, coming out of this whole statements, Karen Clark apparently got a call from GMMB Bank shutting down his account. Now, this is his personal bank account that he used for some sort of money laundering business that he has. A commercial bank calling a private citizen who is not charged with any offense and shutting down his account? Really? Is this what happened? This doesn't happen in a democracy. And clearly, this is GMMB pandering to statements made by the Prime Minister. GMMB said, and I try to quote what it said here, that it acted to ensure the integrity, ethical, and regulatory standards govern the management of all our client relationships. In simple terms, this is called pandering in plain grassroots language. How many other citizens under allegations has GMMB accounts have they shut down? Any bank accounts held by one percenters who are alleged or who are alleged, in terms of corruption under allegations? I can't remember seeing any. So why don't GMMB tell us? I mean, since they now commented on this situation, why don't they tell us how many accounts they have shut down for people who are under allegations of corruption? They can't hide behind the veil of privacy anymore. But that's just how it happens. I mean, you see, folks, there's a banking cartel in Trinidad and Tobago, and they are terrified of citizens finding alternative means of keeping cash. And I say this again, this is not how democracy operates. This is how the Gestapo ran Germany. These are not the actions of a free society that believes in the rule of law. Tomorrow morning, these henchmen may very well find my statements to be offensive and shut down my accounts as well, or even my podcast. Whatever happened to freedom of speech? And where is the media in defending the rights of the citizens? I mean, are they only available when their interests are being threatened? The Prime Minister, apparently he's sought help from the UK police to investigate this whole DSS as well. I'm not sure if the police officers from the UK have arrived yet, but it's noteworthy that all this is being done while the Commissioner of Police is on vacation. But the Commissioner did mention that how he is in charge. So I guess that means he's commanding all these raids and all these operations. Fair enough, that's his job. But while all this is taking place, comes leaked information that Kieran Clark has reached out to the Commissioner of Police to seek immunity for himself and his family. In exchange, however, for information on corrupt police officers and soldiers. Now, quoting from The Guardian here, the Commissioner of Police said, he has asked to meet with only me and wanted to give me information on rogue police officers and soldiers. He asked for immunity, and I indicated to him that I would have to discuss with the DPP. He said then that his life was threatened. Now, Mr. Clark has denied making these allegations, of course, but there was apparently supposed to be some meeting in which Karen Clark was supposed to hand over information about what the police commissioners and legend he said to him. But that meeting did not apparently took place because according to the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Clark cancelled on him. Now the Commissioner of Police went on to say that Mr. Clark was willing to hand them over some documentation detailing names of people who are involved in this whole DSS. But you see, this Commissioner of Police is clearly playing a game of trying to get rats in a swamp to turn on each other. That's what he's doing with these statements. But what is of concern to me is that the Commissioner of Police is playing out this game in the public. You see, playing with the lives of citizens as if he's some sort of judge, jury, and executioner. I mean, is this the best that the Commissioner of Police have? Is this his best line, his best investigative tactic? You're making investigative decisions based on TV shows? Okay, Commissioner. Okay, Gary. No more CSI Miami for you. No more. Now, the police officers went and they got some detention orders in order to seize the $6.4 million. And apparently, an Heeraman magistrate gave them the detention order that they wanted under the Proceeds of Crime Act. You see, folks, it's all linked, This is what happens when we give the government, or we let the government get too big. You give the government power in what if situations, and they then take this power and they use it to your detriment. What does it become of the people who invested this money in this DSS? Under the Proceeds and Crimes Act, they can seize this money for 3 months. So these people have no access at a bare minimum of 3 months for their cash. These politicians go to parliament and they pass these draconian laws to take away our rights. Have you ever heard them pass one law that gives us back our rights? Never. All politicians are interested in doing is taking away our rights. It's always a takeaway. And when they can't get you the legal way in terms of these police officers and how they operate, they try to bring you down in the court of public opinion. Just look at the Commissioner of Police. It's been his modus operandi from the day he took office. And I have said this on my podcast many times. Just think about how many times you have read. Go back and think of how many times you have read when you have seen this Commissioner of Police has found himself engaged in petty arguments with citizens on Facebook. It's like he can't stand to see people have their own opinion about him, good or bad. I mean, if we were to take our eyes off this Commissioner of Police, he will beat every one of us who doesn't agree with him and his point of views into submission. Kieran Clark, allegations true or false? His life is now in danger, according to him. But Jerry, the commissioner, I mean Gary, the Commissioner of Police, is now saying that he should blame those who have leaked the conversation between himself and Kieran Clark for being responsible for putting his life in danger. Now, this from the statement from a public servant that has a duty of care and security for every citizen. And this is how he's speaking, not just to Clark, but to all of us. This is how he speaks to us. You see, because folks, today, Kieran Clark, and tomorrow may very well be for me or you. But for now, the DSS has been shut down. So I suppose he achieved some measure of comfort with that. I don't know how long it's going to last, but that's what it is for right now. But look at this next scenario here I'm about to identify. I've read where Independent Senator Varma Dayal Singh suggests that government should consider regulating social distancing in the current public health regulations to deal with COVID-19 pandemic. We pay these people, folks. We pay this guy. They just want more laws. That's all they want. They don't care. They don't care the implication of it. We pay this Dr. Varma to make these ridiculous suggestions in his contribution to the budget debate. He's claiming that such regulation may become necessary to protect the population. I can't believe we pay this guy to talk this rubbish. He wants to change or to get all these large car parks into movie theaters where people can be tested and just listen to movie, have movie tongue deliver food to your cars in these car parks while you're watching your movies. I mean, I don't understand how stupid can one be to make suggestions like this. This guy's a naughty doctor if ever there was one. And I think this is what happens when you're trapped in quarantine for too long. Somebody please tell Dr. Varma to leave the operations of businesses to the folks that knows best. He clearly does not know how to run a business. And spilling to the economy now, I see the Minister of Finance is informing us that we are importing $55 million worth of apple and grapes annually. Yep, that's where the Minister of Finance is going now, on apple and grapes. I mean, for all the financial mess that this country is in, we have not reached to impose a tax on apple and grapes. But okay, so why not products distributed by companies such as Massey Distribution? Why do you increase tax on, say, Absolute Vodka? And if you really care about the local industry, well, then why do you still go as far as to impose tax on international franchise chains like KFC and Burger King? But you're not going there. You rather pick on the low-hanging fruit, right, Minister of Finance? No, of course, there are other luxurious foods too numerous to mention that can total into the hundreds of millions of dollars. But I question, why is the Minister of Finance so cautious in his selection? it is almost as if he's terrified or he favors some businesses over others. Clearly, that cannot be true, and I know that's not true because he's supposed to be a fair guy and he's supposed to do what is necessary for the country as a whole and not any particular business or business sector. After all, I guess the minister did say it's just VAT, right? Just simply VAT, not more than VAT. Now, I did mention in an earlier episode dealing with the budget 2020 to 21, my take on the Minister of Finance policy decision as it relates to imposing taxes on the foreign news industry. As I mentioned then, figures coming out of the in 2015 from Joanna Rambaran in terms of the usage of foreign currency didn't justify foreign news cars being a major user of foreign currency as compared to others. It so happened that the president of the Trinidad and Tobago Automotive Dealers Association is claiming that the Minister of Finance given a false impression that there are 1.1 million active vehicles on the nation roads. He is contending, that is the president of the um, Automotive Dealers Association, that there's something like 500 to 600,000 vehicles on the road. But catch this, what got me when I was reading what this president was saying of the Automotive Dealers Association. He is saying that there are no statistical office or data in this country that clearly state how many cars are on the road. Because according to him, the licensing office has a registration system only and not any mechanism to deregister vehicles. I mean, can you imagine? We can't even tell how many cars are on the roads, but the Minister of Finance is throwing numbers out like a drunken freshman at a frat party. I mean, where is he getting his numbers from? Now, I remember that the Prime Minister was thinking about instituting a cap in terms of exemptions for luxurious vehicles on government officials, but I've heard nothing about it since then. And in the meantime, ministers, judiciary officers, and other top government earners continue to enjoy millions in tax exemptions while the everyday folk like me and you, we have to find the real cash to pay for these things. And they say Trinidad is a paradise. We surely are a paradise indeed. Now, former Minister Mariana Brown has said that there are many obstacles exist to the restarting of the Point of Bear refinery. But as you all know, the Minister of Finance in his budget debate gave Patriotic Energies and Technologies Limited October 31st to reach an agreement with government. They have made a submission by the deadline. But as of right now, that deal is dead because the government has rejected their counter proposal and they are now seeking a new option. And these options, according to the Energy and Energy Affairs Minister Franklin Khan, could very well include second and third bidders for the refinery or given consideration to another proposal from Patriotic Energies. But as it pertains to starting up the refinery, I want to explore something that former Minister Mariana Brown would have said at West Rotary Club last Wednesday. He said, the refinery has lost engineers who has gone on to greener pastures in a big brain drain, and he doesn't think that the refinery will reopen. If I were to use his numbers that he had mentioned, he said to operate the refinery we need 160,000 barrels of day to refine, and we currently produce 25,000 barrels. Something that I did know that he mentioned is that when this refinery was in its prime, it could have refined 400,000 barrels per day. But based on his numbers, we're still looking at a shortfall of 115,000 barrels of oil per day. I don't know where we're going to get it from or what's going to happen. And if this isn't bad enough, we get news that the national gas company is reporting that as of June 2020, it has recorded a loss of over $300 million owing to the fall in commodity prices. Now, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's looking crazy. I suspect that why the government proposal to decline patriotic counter proposal is because of some dealing that's not going right in terms of sanctioning from parties involved in this whole memorandum of understanding between Patriotic Energies and Venezuelan nationals who are under investigations by the United States. They are under sanctions. But they will have you believe that this whole downturn in economy is happening across the world. That's what they want us to believe. But folks, the US economy grew at a record-shattering pace in the third quarter as businesses continue to open from the coronavirus shutdown. Gross domestic product increased by some 33.1% on an annualized basis. So while they will have you believing that how it's happening across the world downturn, that's not in the US. The previous post-World War II record was 16.7% in 1950 in the US. Obviously, Donald Trump took a victory lap on these numbers, touting it as absolutely a validation of his policies, which created jobs and opportunities. As a matter of fact, Trump went on to issue a tweet about this, stating that GDP numbers just out, biggest and best in the history of the country, and nothing even close. He's also claiming that next year will be fantastic. Wow. But here in Trinidad and Tobago, we are to believe that this entire decline in the economy is as a result of COVID-19. Wow, folks. So I want to give you my take on this new social fad that's making its rounds in Trinidad. I want to tell you why I hate that new social word that everyone seems to be using now as it relates to businesses facing economic pressure in Trinidad and Tobago. That social word called pivot. That ridiculous term that is used to justify the failings of an economy that is not being placed on a path to recovery. That term that is being bandied about to justify the closure of businesses and to lay blame at the doorstep of businesses not able to transform or adapt to COVID-19 forced lockdown. That term that is being used to hide the real wrongdoers in this economy, which is clearly the government. Businesses are closing all over the country, folks. But on social media, we are hearing people asking and stating that businesses should not complain, but instead pivot to a new paradigm. But I guess all this started when Trent Restaurant, they're the owners of Trotters and Boozo, started to lay off staff and close restaurants given COVID-19 restrictions on dining and the inability to raise much needed revenue. And they started to complain about the whole lockdown situation. And people started saying that, businesses should not complain but instead pivot. Folks, it's easier said than done. Folks, easing the restrictions to allow businesses to reopen is part of pivoting. As much as one can complain, which is also part of pivoting. But how much pivoting can one do? Take, for example, the restaurant industry that Trent restaurants are involved in. If your major source of income is in-house dining, then how much more pivoting can you do when folks are staying at home, cooking at home, choosing not to dine out? When the point beyond pivot is reached, what do you really expect businesses to continue to do? How do you really expect them to continue to stay in operation? Businesses are literally being pivoted out of the industry. And when they are pivoted out of the industry, jobs are pivoted out of the industry. Your jobs. Don't for a minute think that when Trent Restaurant closed their doors, they are not sitting on some substantial amount of cash to allow them to be sustainable for a while. But the question you should be asking yourself is, are you sitting on sustainable amounts of cash to allow you to continue for a while? If anyone out there thinks that a business will continue to employ people at the expense of bottom line figures, bottom line profits, or dip into their own savings to continue to operate their business without any sign in the future of when the economy is going to reopen or rebound, then you are sadly mistaken. And to all those pivoters out there, I hope that when your next business does decide to pivot, your name is not written on it. You see, folks, it's not about pivoting. This is all about control. At over 5,600 infected cases, 108 deaths, COVID-19 decisions are being made with no sense of reasoning or future planning. The fact that this partial, nonsensical opening up of the economy is taking place when the rates of infections is higher than what it was when we first started this lockdown shows how incompetent we are dealing with regards to the people who are dealing with the situation. To this day, no one can tell us how many people are tested, how many tests are done per day, or how many tests are capable of being done per day. What percentage of the population is tested, and why is it taking so long for results to be returned to those who have been tested? We should by now be doing thousands of tests per day, and repeat tests should be in the hundreds. I keep saying that it's only with testing can we get ahead of this virus. None of what I just said makes any sense if you understand the true intention of these lockdown measures. When and why they were really instituted is the real issue. You see, it's always been about control. At this moment of our life, government is telling us when to open our business, when to see our family, when and how we are allowed to breathe. This is not the Trinidad and Tobago that I know. This is not the Trinidad and Tobago that I even want for that matter. This is not freedom. This is not about safety or virus. This has always been about control. But let's pivot to a new point. So the United States has threatened to destroy any long-range missiles sent to Venezuela from Iran. This comes after an embargo that ended with Iran and allowed them now to sell missiles. And the United States issued a strict warning right after that, stating that how Venezuela president attempts to buy any missiles will be eliminated wherever they are, en route, or if they end up in Venezuela by some chance, they will be eliminated there. Now, this comes after President Nicolas Maduro announced the creation of some scientific and technological military council designed to seek the country's independence in terms of its weapon system. And he's planning to deal or to trade with China, Russia, Iran, Cuba, countries that he calls sister nations. Wow. The US said they will make every effort to stop shipments of long-range missiles. And as I mentioned before, if they end up in Venezuela, they will be destroyed in Venezuela. Now, I wasn't wrong when this took place, but I read and I remember quite clearly from readings that in 1962, when President John F. Kennedy had a blockade on Cuba to stop the Soviet Union from shipping missiles there, it took the world to the brink of nuclear war. And it seems odd that 50 years ago that happened, it's repeating itself now. According to US officials, Venezuela is paying for gasoline in gold. I wonder what they pay Trinidad and Tobago in. Well, anyhow, and Venezuela has an Iranian presence in that country. Every delivery, according to the US, of arms to Venezuela destabilizes the South American and the Caribbean region. And it places a danger to Brazil, Colombia, and Guyana, and they will not allow it. I recall CARICOM body boldly stating that their only interest in Venezuela was to ensure that there was peace. Folks, what Maduro is planning here, or if he's allowed to let God out of his thoughts to continue to do this, will bring war a mere 5 miles away from your doorstep. And if you think the financial mess that we're in right now as a nation is bad, just try and add war to it. War this close to home will shatter this nation forever. And knowing that the side that this government currently holds with regards to Venezuela, Trinidad and Tobago will definitely be used as a staging point one way or the other. And when I say one way or the other, I mean willingly or not. I urge and I suggest that CARICOM use whatever influence it has, still has, will have, to ensure that Maduro let good sense prevail and not allow these missiles to come to Venezuela if that is his intention. There is so much more news I want to get to and so many more topics I would like to cover, but I don't like my episodes going too long, so let's see what happens. Tuesday is the US presidential elections, and I'm hoping all goes well for President Trump. I'm hoping that he's re elected, but as in any and all elections, one can never be too sure. But, from watching the rallies and looking at the news, paying attention, I have a pretty good feeling for Trump, but I'll wait for the outcome on Tuesday night and then we can make some analysis on what happened there. But before I go, there's one final issue I want to deal with. Today I read an article in the Trinidad Guardian newspaper written by Tony Fraser. And honestly, folks, it is the most BS I have ever read in my entire life. And I have read some BS crap before. Today, Tony Fraser is referencing the US presidential election about to take place on Tuesday and is talking about his perspective on the choices Americans will have to make. Now, as I've always said before, I have no problem with anyone expressing their opinion. But I have every problem when your opinion is clearly lies and half truths. And this guy in today's article, what the article? The article is called "A Vote to Return Democracy or Solidify Dictatorship." Tony Fraser is the poster boy for fake news today. I mean, listen to the rubbish he has written, and these are quotations. I dare say quotations from his articles. The electorate must be aware that if the incumbent is returned to office, he will have further dismantled the governance structure to avoid facing a range of criminal and civil charges. What the hell are you talking about, Tony? What charges are you referencing? What charges are you referring to? Are you referring to Russiagate, which was started and funded by Hillary Clinton? The final outcome that found no evidence according to the Mueller investigation? The House Judiciary Committee found nothing? What charges are you talking about? And what governance structure is dismantled? What governance structure has Trump dismantled? Dismantled, sorry. Skip the fancy words and tell us exactly what you're referring to. Are you referring to Trump undoing every single policy of the Obama Biden era? Policies undone that propelled the US into the greatest economy of the world? But his rubbish doesn't end here, I mean, he has no facts to support anything that he's saying. His, his rubbish continues. He has politically terrorized the Republican Party, turning Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham into bandwagoning senators. I sure as hope Lindsey Graham does not hear what you have to say. He will take you to tongue on every and so many different levels. And I need not speak for either of these men, as they are more than competent to defend themselves in my opinion. But I dare say that the political terrorizing that you're referring to, you should be asking the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago and pay them supporters. I mean, providing you're still capable of reporting fairly, because from what I'm reading here, I don't think you are. And he doesn't end there, Hear what he said again. Most dramatically, President Trump has taken hold of the national judiciary system, placing judges across the federal court system and manipulating Senate leaders to achieve a 6-3 majority on the Supreme Court. Oh my God. Manipulation, you say, Tony? Manipulation? This guy has no idea how judges are appointed in Trinidad and Tobago. The appointment of justices in the United States Supreme Court is far more transparent as compared to any part of the world. The president nominates and the Senate confirms. It's been this way for decades. And it's been this way for decades for both Democrats and Republicans. The fact that election has consequences is what Tony is having a problem with. Trump won, he gets to pick. It's that easy. There is no manipulation. Senators that belong to either Republicans or they belong to either Democrats. Who has the majority gets to confirm. It's just that simple. It's no rocket science in that. And this guy, he used the word journalist attached to his name. Hear him. His, and I suppose you're referring to Trump here, hovering over the swearing-in ceremony of the most recent recruit to the Supreme Court was Kremlin-like. I mean, this guy has no shame. I mean, when you say Kremlin-like, what are you referring to exactly? I mean, really, Tony? I saw that swearing-in ceremony. Maybe we were watching two different things. I think I was watching Trump swearing in ECB, and you were probably watching the President of the United States hovering over something, but it wasn't Amy Coney Barrett. Maybe you were watching local TV when the President of Trinidad and Tobago was swearing in the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Huh? You sure you wasn't watching that? When Trump says no one trusts the media anymore, it's because of people like Tony Fraser and their fake news reporting. I can't believe the Guardian media published this crap. I mean, this is not news. It's not even worth the paper it's written on. Is there anyone at the Guardian media doing any fact checking? For God's sake, you owe the President and United States people an apology for this ridiculous writing that you call journalistic and supposed to stand up to journalistic standards. Whatever good you have done in your past, you're losing your game. Your partisan is showing clearly. Consider retirement. I hope the editor of Guardian does a retraction for the crap you've written. I mean, the embarrassment that you would have placed Trinidad and Tobago through. Everything that I have highlighted, all those points that I've highlighted, that is going on currently in Trinidad. But Tony Fraser chooses to sit on his hands and point fingers. I hope he understands how much is pointing back at him. Your article has made Trinidad and Tobago a lot more poor intellectually in the eyes of the world. You should take a bow for that, Tony. Okay, folks, I'm going to end here. See you next time for episode 19. Take care and be safe.